Welcome, Josh and Bryan. Thank you very much for your time and your talents. We're so excited to have your exhibit in our gallery. So, Bryan, tell our viewers briefly who you are so they can get to know you a little better.
I'm Bryan Mark Taylor, and I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I did my master's at the Academy of Art University and did my undergraduate work at Brigham Young University. I am a plein air painter. I love being outdoors. I love outdoors, and I love painting. So that combination is just how I want to live my life, really. And I feel very blessed to be able to do that full time. And I do also love to teach as well. So I taught a little bit at the Academy of Art University in the grad school, and now I'm just doing workshops on my own. And through that whole process, I've gotten to know a lot of great people, including Josh, Clare, and John Burton. And it's great to associate with great artists like those two.
So Josh, please tell our viewers briefly who you are so they get to know you a little better.
Thank you, yes. I'm Josh Clare, an artist from Utah. Grew up in Utah, and I live there now with my family. I have a 1.5-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy and a beautiful wife, and I make art for a living. So I'm a gallery artist, I guess would be the technical term for it. I did graduate from BYU-Idaho, and I got an insanely good education at this beautiful university with excellent instruction. I love this place, actually, and I taught here for a couple of years after I graduated, so this is a good place to be if you are an art student.
So, Bryan, this is for you. Tell us briefly how you 3 artists came up with this idea to paint together in this context of along the Mormon Trail.
Well, I think Josh and we can't take credit really for it because John Burton, and unfortunately he's not here because he's in Chile with his family right now, but John had this kind of inspired moment. He feels like he had this moment of inspiration where he felt that he wanted to honor his pioneer ancestors. And the interesting thing about John is that 3 generations ago, his family were members, and they had, they lived in Salt Lake City, but he didn't grow up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. And he actually started studying when he got a little bit older, in kind of college age, about his ancestry. He got interested in his ancestry, and it was really reading the kind of the historical nature of his ancestors coming across to the west, to Salt Lake City, and settling there, and joining the church. And that's really what was a big part of his conversion story. He ultimately converted to the church, and so years down the road, he has this kind of inspired moment where I need to honor my ancestors by painting the trail, and he felt inspired to call and talk to me about it. He actually waited a year after he had the inspiration because he's like, I'm not ready. I don't know Bryan all that well. But then once we got to know each other, and just one day when I was painting, he was painting. He called me up. He said, "Hey, I got to tell you about this idea." So he talked to me about the idea. And I'm like, this would be fantastic. It'd be super neat to do that. And then down the road, we met Josh, and I said, John, we got to have Josh here. His work's fantastic. He's a great guy too. That's part of it. Well, we wanted cohesive kind of group of people that got it and would take it seriously.
Sure.
and do it. So
and then the camaraderie.
The camaraderie of it all, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when I first talked to Josh about it, he immediately got it and was on board, and we knew it would be a sacrifice to in terms of money and things like that.
Right, and your families too.
Yeah, and our families being away from him. So we started planning trips, and so we did one big trip, all of us together, to do a large portion of the trail, and then we split off, and John and I did a part, and then Josh and John did it on a separate trip, and then we did a couple of extra trips to just personal trips to kind of fill in all the areas. So all of us could see the entire trail and kind of get a, paint on location. That was a big part of it. We wanted to be on the trail and not just experiencing it from photos or anything.
Sure. That's wonderful. So it's not only this Western U.S. history, but actually a personal historic journey for John through a family search.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It is really neat. And do you mention he was a convert of 7 years? I missed that part. But yeah, it's really cool that he rediscovered his pioneer heritage. It's awesome.
Okay, so that leads us to the next question. For John, as a newly converted member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to find his family history, and that's more refreshing perhaps, I think, than perhaps those who were around it quite a while longer than John himself. So Josh, this question is for you. As we were talking earlier, Mormon Trail sins have been portrayed numerous times in various media like photography, movies, and so on. So, especially in Latter-day Saints culture, what do you think this exhibit brings to the viewers that is so unique?
So there's several significant points. One of the differences about this show is that it's a group of artists doing this thing together, which I think is unique. I haven't heard of that being done, and I love the juxtaposition of 3 different perspectives on it. We were together, and yet we see it extremely differently and experienced it differently. So that's kind of a neat thing to be able to see all this work in one place from 3 different views, 3 different standpoints. Yeah.
And then you painted today's trail.
Exactly. That's the other thing that's unique about it, is that we're not trying to be historical in our depiction of the trail or whatever, which is generally what you see when the Mormon Trail is painted. We just traveled it and drove the freeways and got as close to it as we could, and just when we saw something that was impressive or beautiful or striking or whatever, as an artist, you just drive until you see the thing that gets you. And we were just these 3 guys in a car, 2 guys with cameras going like crazy. Mm-hmm. And if we saw it, we'd stop and jump out and paint it. And we did Nauvoo to Wyoming in like 1 week in the winter. Just like that, just crazy. Jump in the car, go until something happened or until you saw something, stop and paint it, jump back in. And we did a lot of paintings in a day, huh? Mm-hmm. We'd do like 7 to 10-ish, maybe even more, like little tiny sketches on paper. But yeah, the fact that we were painting it, that we were actually on the trail, painting it from life, that there were 3 of us together, that were painting it the way it looks right now rather than trying to guess how it might have looked. I guess those are probably the defining points. Do you have anything else?
I think the thing that's kind of interesting is we all approached it with a great intensity too, and that where to stop and when to stop and how long. We had to do a lot of compromise, but the person that was feeling the strongest about it would kind of take that lead, and let them kind of do it. And we all had kind of those moments. And so it was really, really intense, and we were absolutely exhausted each day. I mean, we'd push super hard and work from, just get up super early, go, and then until it was dark, and then look for a place to stay. And so it was a very, very intense, but also it was very fun and very, but also very spiritual at the same time. So
very fulfilling.
Very fulfilling in all levels.
Yeah. What an impressive, not only as an artist, but personal journey that you took together. That's very special, I think.
I had one thing in addition to that. I'd forgotten this, but we had kind of this code in the car where it was there's tons of beautiful things, and we saw tons that we wanted to paint that we didn't stop at, and we had this we had to get a certain distance because we were covering a huge amount of ground in a short amount of time, and so we had to say no a lot. There are things that we just had to pass up, and we we'd kind of say, well, is that a maybe? Is that, what do you guys think? Is that I'm liking this, or are you guys liking this? Is this good? No, maybe. But sometimes if it was a definite, if it was like I've got to do that, even if the other two were like, we'd do it anyway for that one person. So we had this, sometimes it was all three of us super excited about a place, but we would allow that one, if one guy had just an absolute, we need to paint this thing, then we'd stop for him.
Was there one or two places that all three of you just had to paint that you loved?
I would say Devil's Gate was definitely a place that was very compelling, not only because of what happened there with like the Martin and Willie Handcart companies, but also it's just a neat place in terms of its geology, visual beauty, and there's a lot of significant things about that area, I think.
Right. I've seen it personally too. It's unbelievably stark, almost a man-made looking kind of a landscape there.
Yeah, I'd say
But
it's a special place.
Yeah.
If there's a consecrated or a holy spot that's just land, nothing but dirt and rocks, that place is special.
I wish you had more time to, I bet you have a lot of personal spiritual experiences that you could share with. I wish. Okay, so this one is for Bryan. So you did travel together. Can you share some funny experiences and maybe some difficulties if you had?
Sure. I think, well, first of all, when you spend that much time in the car with these guys,
Two other guys.
and you're that tired, and also just working that hard, you definitely let your guard down, and everybody just becomes very funny, and you start laughing and everything. But then also, we kind of go from that transition of just funny. I mean, Josh, you should hear his Russian accent. It's amazing. And John has a German accent, apparently. And so, but anyway, just super fun to be with them. And
Did you have an accent?
Well, I speak Italian, so maybe a little bit of Italian accent, but it wasn't as useful as the German and Russian, I'm fairly certain. But I think that, just that camaraderie was great, because we relate on a lot of levels. We have similar, to a certain degree, our faith kind of unites us, and that's a really wonderful thing, to have that common ground. So we transition from those funny moments and then certain quotes or certain things that we'd keep saying over and over again, and then we'd go into the kind of the spiritual things, the more deep type of stuff. So it was interesting, like these almost moments where you're weeping because we'd be reading quotes about some of these journal entries 1 minute, and then laughing about somebody tripping over a bush or whatever the next minute. So it's a neat kind of. It was very emotions, all kinds of emotions through the whole thing.
Right. And like a sunset is already an innately kind of spiritual. People will stop, even if they're in the city or they're busy or distracted or whatever. That always gets you and makes you stop.
Very emotional towards sunset, sunrise.
But when you experience, like, you're in a sacred place and it's already so beautiful and so spiritually powerful, and then you have the intent that we had where we're out there painting Pioneer Trail and thinking about our ancestors and thinking about all they sacrificed and everything. There's some powerful painting moments for me. I always love those moments just as an artist, but there's an added layer of where it, really sacred, really special times on the trail.
Wonderful, thank you. So Josh, this is for you. How and when did you realize that you wanted to be an artist?
It was, early in high school, I drew a lot, and I had this vague idea of, I want to be an animator for Disney. I want to draw really well. But I think it was my first semester here at BYU-Idaho before my mission. I graduated young, and I had a semester here, and I'd never taken art classes really until college, and I just enrolled in the art program because it's what my career test said I ought to do. And
You mean science worked in this case?
yeah, it's weird. I mean, you fill out all those little questionnaires, right? Like, what do you like? And everyone was art, art, art. And I thought, well, I don't have to decide. I guess I might as well do this. And man, I loved it. So really, there was no option. It was going to be really hard to choose something that wasn't art. When I came home from a mission and thought, okay, it's time for a career, it's like, I've got to do something, because that was so much fun. I loved art so much. So that's when I knew, it was pretty early in college, that I knew I'd be an artist. And then there was a whole journey of discovering what kind of artist I wanted to be and what was right for me. That happened here, though, at school. And part of the catalyst of discovering just what kind of artist I was going to be was getting married and having that responsibility, huge responsibility of, I've got to provide. I've got to seriously think about what kind of thing I can do with art that will allow me to provide for a family, because that was number one, really. I knew that was my responsibility.
So Bryan, what do you wish you had done more while you were in college?
I think I would have been much more demanding of my teachers and kind of been more like dictating what it is that I really wanted out of class. I think I accepted things too much about this is how the class, I guess, should be taught. I remember, telling a teacher I didn't think he was doing a very good job, and that's why I was showing up late. And he just said sorry, and I shouldn't have let him just get away with a sorry. I should have said, okay, let's change this and make this better. So I would be much more, I think, demanding about, and I hope the reverse would be he or the teacher would have been much more demanding on what they expected out of me. So I think that that time is so precious, and you just don't realize it when you're young.
Right. It's hard to be in charge of something when you don't realize that you are in charge.
Yeah, that's right. So fortunately, I did in my master's program at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. I was much more demanding with my teachers. I would go and change classes, even if they were required classes, and say, I want to do this other class, and I'd fight for it. So I was able to correct some of those things, but I wish I was able to do it also in those first 4 years. It would have been good, because there's certain aspects of it that I think were, quite frankly, a waste, and you just don't want to have that.
Sure. Thank you. Josh, what advice do you have for young students who are just starting out as an artist?
Figure out what you want to do fast. That is because, man, if you're going to be successful in art, you've basically got to be the bomb. You've got to be the best at what you do, or one of the best, or stinking good. You've got to get really good. And the only way to get really good in any art career, any of these different things you can do with art, is to spend a lot of time doing it. So you've got to discover really quickly if it's illustration or graphic design, or what kind of graphic design. And so my advice to a beginning freshman would be to immediately figure out some sort of internship. Try to decide what you like, and then get some experience actually working with someone who does that, or talking to someone who does that, or shadowing someone who does that. I think that's critical, massively critical, to do that really early and to discover what it is, because then it's going to take a lot longer than 4 years to become a marketable designer or illustrator or whatever. So you've got to figure it out real quick, and then work your tail off while you're here in school and while you have chance, like Bryan was saying. People with knowledge and skills that you can learn from. So, yeah, for me, some of the critical moments of figuring out what I needed and what was going to work for me in art was an internship in graphic design, where I just went, holy cow. I cannot be a graphic designer unless I am the lead graphic designer making all the calls. I can't work at Pixar unless I'm John Lasseter. I've got to be the director or the in charge guy, and that's kind of what led me to the discovery of fine art, where I could make the calls. But that's the critical thing. For me, a beginning student needs to find out really quickly. So you love art, that's fabulous, but what specifically are you going to master in this gigantic field?
So know what you want first and pursue aggressively.
Exactly.
And be in charge.
Then a big mission, like a plan basically that says, I'll take this semester. In order to develop this skill or to strengthen this weakness, I've got to do this. And so a really focused, you've got to have a seriously focused 4 years if you're going to make it work. And then even like the 3 or 4 years after that, if you've gone to grad school or do another art school or something, its time is critical. So don't waste it.
Thank you very much. Well, for sure, we're so blessed and we're so grateful for your talents and having your show here. And our students will for sure benefit from your talents. And thanks again for sharing, and best of luck to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.